Yo, J Maya back with another video. Anyway, going to shoot my bow, but anyway, I wanted to make a video here, a little somewhat related to the topic of the fight that we just saw with McGregor Cowboy. But really, I want to talk about social engineering, brainwashing, programming, and how sports, MMA, television, music, it all does this. It's really sad, man. I keep hearing on all these MMA shows about they've all gone into damage control about the McGregor Cowboy fight, saying how it's not fixed, and everybody's making videos, you know, addressing the fix. They address it. I've never seen anybody else, when people have said a fight was fixed, make videos and come out. Every major MMA channel, every major MMA coverer has come out and made videos saying that this was not a fix, and putting out arguments to persuade the viewership that it's not. You know, you got to remember, man, all these channels, all these MMA journalists, per se, they make their money off of fans. They make their money off of the UFC. The more popular and the more viewers that the UFC gets, and the more hype the sports get, the more views they get, the more likes they get, the more money they get for themselves. This is a business, and these people are profiteering off your money. They're taking your money and your fanship and your viewership, and they're making it monetary. Of course, they're going to argue against it being fixed, because when people start saying it's fixed, they don't want to watch the UFC anymore. I've seen many people on my channel say, man, I'm done with this. I'm not watching it anymore. They're not getting any more of my money, and I'm over it. I'm done with the UFC. That's why all these guys are coming out and they're straight shilling. They're trying to save their capital. They're trying to save their money. So what are they doing? They're all coming out, and they, just like the fight comes out, they create a narrative. They create a narrative and use flowery speech and flowery arguments, and pretty much they dismiss any of the arguments without of the people that say this was fixed or whatever, or have anything negative say, by simply saying, oh, they're casuals. Oh, they have low IQs. Oh, they're not smart people. Oh, they're idiots. But without answering or dealing with the arguments that are brought out. In fact, they say things that are quite the contrary. They don't talk about the punches that hit Conor's arms. They don't talk about the speed with which he goes. They don't talk about Donald not fighting back. They don't address the concerns that we have. Instead, they insult us. They say we have low IQs, and they just make the same flowery arguments and dismissive things, and in order to just to debase and devalue us, rather than deal with our actual arguments and concerns. This is a good tactic to use, because if you can just get people to be led astray by their base instincts and by their own desires, rather than having to do with critical thinking and arguments, then you can win, because feelings most of the time control people's belief system. What you feel is what you believe, and people don't take the time to think critically. They don't take the time to actually to search out arguments and think for themselves and ask themselves legitimately hard and difficult questions. As far as having a low IQ, all these people saying low IQ, my IQ is 130, okay? So bump that. I got a master's degree, post-grad work in theology, anthropology, philosophy, and I was a teacher. I taught elementary education, special education, and high school. I was top 3% of the United States Army when I was in. I was the honor graduate of my basic training. I was the honor graduate, the first drill sergeant, the youngest drill sergeant in United States Army history. I finished first out of 69, and I was the youngest one ever there. I got the highest score in the drill sergeant school ever. I think my final percentage was a 96.7. My GT score was perfect. And I even have 4 counseling certifications. So if you think that I'm stupid, you're idiotic, man. I'm falling down to their arguments, so I shouldn't do that. After what I just told you, the amount of I have 10 years of college, the amount of education that I've pursued, and I've had to write research papers that are like 270 pages long. That's a small novel. There's no way doing that in anthropology and philosophy, and the amount I was reading 200 pages a night for school. There's no way that I have a low IQ or don't have critical thinking skills. That's the thing that things like theology and philosophy and anthropology teach you to have. And being a teacher as well, teachers were supposed to teach critical thinking skills. And the same thing with counseling. You have to have critical thinking skills to counsel people and understand what counseling and behavior modification is going to work to enable to enhance that person and affect that person's life. So bump all that bull crap that they're putting out there. That's just, it's trash. It's trash. But if they can make the people look stupid and devalue them and debase them, then they can make their arguments look foolish rather than dealing with the arguments. Listen, all sports out here are being manipulated. They all get manipulated. There's so much money involved. And anywhere you have money or power, you're going to have corruption. It's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of how human beings are. Like I said, I've got a minor in my master's in anthropology. I studied human behavior, and with counseling, and teaching, and being in the Army, I was in charge of 800 people. You're going to learn about human behavior. You're going to understand human behavior.
In 2.7 miles,
human behavior is easily corrupted. People are greedy. I don't care the best person in the world. I made in the Army, I made a lot of money, man. I was making like almost 115 grand a year before I got out and got hurt, which I have a pension now. I don't make even close to that. And it corrupted me to some amount, man. It gave me an opportunity just to do more bad stuff, chase more women, drink more alcohol, which I don't even drink anymore. But that's the point, man. Money can corrupt. And money can easily corrupt anybody. Anybody. If you take in, that's why the Bible says not to make me too rich that I forget God, and not to make me too poor that I go and steal. But it's good to be right in the middle, man, to be struggling for your paycheck to paycheck, and to remember that you need to look to the Most High and to remember Him, and not to be in such a desperate place that you would go down to immoral ways of getting your needs met. But that being said, man, society is socially engineered by those in power. Those in power have the money in order to manipulate through mass media and dictate the storyline. They dictate the storyline of history. They dictate the storyline of politics. They dictate the storyline through entertainment, man. It's all made to dumb you down and to brainwash you, to get your thinking patterns away from being patterns that are critical thinking and fall into a mass general, almost like a hypnosis way of thinking. People who watch that Conor and Cowboy fight with their own two eyes, all their own five senses can see what was right in front of them. But all these arguments and all these media and all these entertainment outlets, they give you these flowery arguments, and they do this in order to get you to not even trust your own five senses, to trust not with your eyes and your ears and your mind is telling you. And that's what they do through all mass media and journalism and all sorts of stuff, man. They get you to stop thinking for yourself. You follow a broad narrative and believe like the consensus believes, instead of being in the minority and thinking different, thinking outside of the box, being an individual. That's dangerous to them, because once you're an individual and you start thinking outside the box, you're going to start questioning things. When you start questioning things, they can't just straight lie to you and you're going to believe it like everybody else. The general consensus is usually not what's true. Don't go with the general consensus. The general consensus has never been about what's true. It's always about what is best for those in power, because they control the general consensus. You're being controlled. You're being mind controlled. Stop watching your damn TVs all the time. Stop listening to music on the radio. Stop buying into all the with the major newscasters and the major publications gone. It's all paid for. It's all bought by. This country is owned by the rich and major corporations that are all in the business of protecting their own interests, which is their power, which is their money, which is their control, which is their being able to be free to do whatever they want, while at the same time restricting you so that it doesn't impinge on their freedom. That's what's going on. Listen, this company is owned, this is how it works. Major rich people and corporations, they're the ones who have the money. In order to get legislation going and in order to get congressmen elected, it takes money to campaign. So what happens? These major campaigns hire what are called lobbyists. And lobbyists go to Washington. And lobbyists give campaign funds and contributions, which are thereby by many of these campaigns and by their so-called organizations that help people and do stuff. There's a lot of money laundering going on. They launder that money into their own pockets. Those campaign contributions get laundered and go straight into a politician's pocket. They buy the politician, and therefore once the politician is in their pocket and in the pocket of that interest group, they're going to lobby for the interest of the lobbyist who's being bought by the major corporations in order to legislate and put in control. That's why you have law enforcement is an extension of your political powers. They are enforcing what the political powers are putting down pressure to enforce. And it's all mostly for the business of making money and gaining control and keeping their structure of power, because very few people rule the very many. But the very many are very easily swayed, man. That's why people get called sheeple, because they just go along with the pack instead of being individual. Because being an individual and thinking outside the box and thinking for yourself is frowned upon. And not only are you hated, you're attacked, you're called names, you're belittled, you're belated, you're dismissed, and you're made to look unimportant. And you don't win any friends that way. So most people just go with the flow rather than going along going against it, because going against it is highly uncomfortable. And who wants to be discomforted in life? Who wants to have a hard life or a difficult life? Who wants to lose friends? Who wants to have tensions in their life? Who wants to not be liked by all their coworkers? Well, is truth important to you, or is being liked by everybody important to you? You know, there's a wide path that leads to destruction, man. A narrow one that leads to life, man. A lot of people are on a wide path, man, because it's easy. It's easy. It's easy to not be targeted. It's easy to go along. Use the left 2 lanes to turn on to California. Okay, hush, lady. It's easy to be one of the masses. You know? If you go against, look what people like Dr. King or Malcolm X or John F. Kennedy, or the list goes on and on and on. What happened to those people? They get killed. Why? Because they're dangerous to the public. Not to the public. They're dangerous to the interest of those ruling the public. Those in charge. They're to all the groups that are in cahoots between politics and media and corporation and banking. They all work together because they support one another's interests. The interests of the majority are against the interests of the minority. It's simple. It's very, very simple. You know, and go and look at any government throughout history and how they governed and controlled the people. You have kings and queens that live in palaces while people in the Middle Ages are dying on the streets of bubonic plague because of all the infestation of rats and the lice that they have. They could have done stuff to clean up and make things better, but all they did was isolate themselves off and cut themselves off from the populace with their ways of living and their optimal big huge fancy feasts and riches and gold and jewels, while you got peasants without bread dying on the streets. You know, the same thing. Look, MMA in some ways, in all sports, it's modern, just like you had in Rome. Rome had the Colosseum in gladiator sports, which were, NFL, boxing, MMA, they're just modern forms of gladiator sport. I like gladiator sport, I'm not going to lie. But people would go to the games And the games were actually free, and the gladiator games were free and open to the public. And they would go out there and watch these spectacles of sport and blood, and many times to the death. Not all gladiator fights were to the death, though, or they wouldn't have any gladiators. But anyway, during that time, there would be Roman emperors would hand out to the public bread and water and meat, and they would spread their politics and their plans and policies, the things they were doing for the Roman people in order to get the support and the populace of the people behind the rulers in power. The sports were put there to entertain and to dumb down and also to manipulate them. You know, they're feeding them bread, they're giving them food, oh, this is a good guy, they're providing entertainment. That gets them all in the pocket of that emperor or that ruler. So then when it comes time and they put down imperial edicts, the people aren't opposed to them. They're dumbed down and they haven't used their own critical thinking, and they're just thinking with their stomachs and with their feelings and emotions because they were manipulated. Yo, it's like this. The same thing, the same principles have been in effect since the beginning of time, since the beginning of the human race has been upon the earth. The strong have manipulated the lower classes. I would say the weak, but I'm not weak, man. But I'm weak in this, that I have very, very little means to make any change. If you're poor, unless we riot and cause upheaval and revolt, there's very little power we have as individuals. We can inform like I do on my channel here. We can put words out. We can argue. We can document. We can persuade. But that's very little in today, because look at your YouTube channels. People that are speaking out have like 100 subscribers, 50 subscribers, 7 subscribers. These mass media people have hundreds of thousands and millions of subscribers because, man, they go along with the flow and they make mass amounts of money. So then it becomes their own interest to keep themselves going in that same frame of business and that frame mode of purpose. And that's what keeps them afloat. That's what gives them money. That's what gives them status. That's what gives them power, man. And power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's just facts, y'all. It's just facts. So when people are telling you not to believe this thing was fixed, when you've seen it with your own 2 eyes, your own brain tells you, your own reasoning tells you, your own gut tells you, you know, they're not your friend. You know, you need to know who your enemy is. And your enemy doesn't necessarily look like an enemy, man. He comes at you with smiles right in his face while he lies to you with his mouth. Don't pay attention to flowery arguments, but pay attention to reason and critical thinking. Pay attention to facts. That's what's important, man. You know, these people say, do you have 100% proof that this was fixed? No, nobody does. But when people go to trial and get convicted, and the evidence isn't 100% true against them. They get convicted and they're innocent and spend 40 years in jail. How many times have we seen that? So you don't need 100% evidence to believe something is true, you know? Unfortunately, those people get convicted on wrongful evidence, man, but some people get convicted on right evidence. So you have to look at the evidence, weigh the evidence, use your own mind and critical thinking, and, you know, in a court of law, is it reasonable? Is there can we convict Conor beyond a reasonable doubt? No, there's reasonable doubt. I'll give it that. If this went to court, there's reasonable doubt. But man, I'm telling you, it's like the OJ trial. It's about like the OJ trial. There's reasonable doubt for that jury. But man, the way they created that reasonable doubt, dude didn't take his blood pressure medicine. His hand couldn't fit in the glove, so his hand can't go in the glove, so he's not guilty. They got past that. I'd say this is about on a quality level with that. Anyway, I'm just tired of listening to the shilling. I'm tired of listening to the lies. I'm tired of people who are thinking for themselves being put down, being called crazy and stupid and low IQ when they're actually using their brains and their own eyes and their own rational judgment to make a judgment and a decision about what it is they are seeing and consuming and taking in. Start using the same process on everything that you use. Unplug, man. Unplug from the Matrix. The Matrix is there to keep you asleep while they use you. They take your work and your labor and pay nothing for it and take your money in taxes. They take from you. You are enslaved to some degree. You work for Caesar in order to Caesar to keep up his lavish lifestyle while you get some free games and some free bread and some free food. And heck, for us, it's not even free. The UFC, if you're a fan, costs like $140. It costs like over $1,000 a year to watch the UFC events. If you watch all the platforms, you're spending $1,000 a year to be entertained. So that's not even free. Caesar at least gave those people free food, you know. But you get my drift and you get my point. Anyway, leave your comments below. My videos keep going too long, but I get tired of it. And when I got some rational arguments and I have a mind to think with, I'm going to share as long as I'm here before they kill me. And they're going to kill me eventually. But until God lets them kill me, I'm still here. So y'all be blessed. God bless. Have a wonderful day. Peace out.